what's quite unique with AI, I believe, is that it lowers the ceiling to become an expert on a certain topic. So I do think given that everyone can have access to basic knowledge on any topic and learn like very fast on any topic, that the importance of becoming an expert on something will increase over time.
Welcome to the Agency Profit Podcast, a show dedicated to going deep space on agency operations, which is just as nerdy as it sounds. I'm your host, Marcel Petitpas. I'm the CEO of Parakeeto, a firm that helps digital and creative agencies measure and improve their profitability. Join me as I interview some of the smartest thought leaders and agency owners in our space and go deep into operations, metrics, and all the other things you need to get right so you can spend less time worrying about operations and more time executing on your vision. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Agency Profit Podcast. Today, I'm joined to be pleased by Simo Lemhandez, who is the CEO and founder at Folk CRM that if you've been listening to the show for the last couple of months, you've heard about because they've been sponsoring the show prior to starting this company, which, by the way, is one of the fastest growing companies in Europe and was nominated for Best Product or Product of the Year, by Product Hunt. He was a McKinsey consultant and also worked at Morgan Stanley. And he's here today to talk about where go-to-market is headed for small consulting firms and agencies. So with all of that, Simo, thank you for joining us on the show today, man.
Thank you a lot, Marcel, for having me. Excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. So I've given everyone a little bit of context on who you are and what you do, but in your own words, what are you doing at Folk and who do you serve?
Thank you. Well, basically, I'm Simo. I'm the founder of Folk. And with Folk, we are attacking a gigantic market that you all know, the CRM space. It's the largest B2B software space. And it's also growing very fast, meant to double by 2013. But at the same time, we do believe that when looking at the incumbent, the current CRM on the market, they are very poorly positioned in order to capture the shift in the AI era. As customers, what we expect today is from our software to do way more for us. We expect from our software to be the so-called single source of truth, to basically capture all the data from our customer touchpoints that are happening on LinkedIn, on WhatsApp, on email, on calls, to map it in a single place. And this CRM have been failing to do that. But that's not where we stop. We use all this data in order to power a crowd of assistants that live in your CRM and that just do the job for you. They are working 24/7, even while you sleep. And I believe that in this world, we make the job of business owners and agency owners different because they can focus on what really matters, like exercising their expertise and connecting with their potential leads and clients, while leaving all the busy work to assistants that work for you, basically.
So you've touched on this a little bit, but I really want to double click on the backstory of like how you decide to start a CRM company in 2019 when there's a lot of CRMs and it feels like it's largely a solved problem. There's huge incumbents, to your point, that are in the space dominating it. How did you come to the point where you said, I'm going to start this company? And I'm sure you had to answer this question on the road to raising the money to make this thing happen, right? So why start Folk and what problem did you set out to solve?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I was a management consultant at McKinsey before, and at some point I wanted to build my own product. And in order to do that, I did a coding bootcamp in Europe named Le Wagon, where I started to learn coding, basically. After the bootcamp, I started freelancing for a bunch of different clients. And at the moment, I was managing like maybe 3-4 missions, and maybe 30 leads. It's not a lot, but I was already lost. And so that's the moment where I started looking at the so-called single source of truth, the so-called CRM. And what I realized it was that they were called single source of truth, but they weren't capturing my interaction at all. That were happening on LinkedIn, that were happening in my WhatsApp DMs, that were happening in my emails, in my calls, and all this data was all over the place. And my experience of this CRM was way more of me as a little operator pushing clicks and buttons just in order to keep it up to date. And I really thought that that's not what the experience that I expect, even more with one of my most precious assets, which are my leads, my clients. That's the core of my business. So that's the moment where I wanted to flip the script and build a CRM where you don't feel you are working for the CRM, but you really feel that the CRM is working for you. It's helping you be better at your job. That's how we decided to create a CRM business.
So one of the things that I found interesting about your product and your strategy is while every CRM in the world, it seems like just moves up market. That's kind of like the law of most SaaS companies that are in B2B is you just like at some point, everybody just moves up market. HubSpot's been doing it. Everyone's been doing it. Where you sort of built a very, very simple product, and simple in the sense like deliberately simple. That's the feature of the product, not the bug. And it is very focused on smaller consultants, creative digital agencies. Like a lot of those people make up your client base and are sort of representative of you and the cohort of peers that I'd imagine you were working around when you were freelancing and consulting. What informed that position and how has that informed the product strategy? What did you think you had to do that was maybe counter to conventional wisdom and how everybody else was building CRM products based on that insight? That was a market that was underserved.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I do believe that one thing is that the CRM market is so big and so large. Every company in the world needs a CRM as long as they are like selling to potential leads and clients. That's a market where you can build like a massively valuable company by being focused on small and medium businesses. And that's I'd say the first insight. The second insight is I believe that like companies that are successful on SMBs then tend to try to increase their market size by going to enterprise and forget their SMB roots and forget what made them successful at the first place. And that's really what we don't want to do. We really want to stick to that vision of making the job of business owners, of agencies, let's say from 1 to 100 people, simpler and more streamlined. And as you say, I do believe that simplicity is the feature, but it takes a lot of effort and complexity in the background to make a product feels like it's a simple product. And ChatGPT is probably like a very good example. You start on ChatGPT only with a chatbot, with a text box that's prompting you to ask something. But what's happening on the background is the real complexity and technological innovation. And so that's what we're trying to do. We know that like sales are extremely complex. They involve multiple touch points. They involve multiple stakeholders in the team. You need to manage different pipelines. But we just want our user to feel that this is extremely simple. Because that's not where we want them to spend their effort. We rather want them to spend their effort on exercising their expertise, and not setting up their CRM.
Yeah. So you touched on this a little bit in the preamble, but one of the things that you mentioned was you felt like the other products at the time when you were freelancing didn't really support the way that you were selling and going to market. And the insight there was, especially as kind of a freelancer, a lot of your go-to-market was relationship-based. You're in WhatsApp texting with people. You're on LinkedIn having chats and dialogues with people. You're firing emails back and forth. You're calling people up. And that stuff didn't feel like it was connected and supported by the tools that you were using. So I guess the first question here is, what is your perspective on how go-to-market is evolving for this particular cohort of, small consulting firms, agencies, expert-based businesses, and how AI is impacting that shift and where you think it's headed?
Yeah, I see multiple trends happening at the same time. So the first one is social selling. People are leveraging multiple channels, multiple touch points in order to sell, and engaging with leads on the channels where these leads are already living. So email is probably obviously still working, but it's very, very busy. So it makes sense to go engage with leads on LinkedIn, to engage with them by SMS, by WhatsApp, or on other channels where they are already engaging in a more casual way. That's the first thing that we are seeing. Second, I would say a large trend that we are seeing is ABM, accounts-based marketing. So we want our CRM, or the sales system that you use, to be able to help you visualize more complex interactions between all the people of your team and multiple people in the accounts that you target. And this requires to have a relational database that links your user, your teammate, to a company and the people that works in this company in order for you to find the right path with the strongest connection to this person. What's the last time a teammate of my team interacted with someone in this company, and so on and so forth. So that's the second thing about account-based marketing. The third thing that I'm seeing a lot is, I'd say, more personalization. That AI is accelerating even more, and more personalization starts by very good data enrichment. So you need to aggregate multiple like vendors of enrichment to enrich people and companies and have the more consolidated view on them. And a very good, I would say, synchronization across channels so that you have all the context. And that helps AI have the best possible, I'd say, output. I would say that these are like the three very large insights that I'm seeing at the moment. Yeah.
It's interesting. AI definitely feels like a lever that is allowing smaller and smaller companies to leverage more and more context, right? If you can get that context into a centralized place, into a format where AI can make use of it, it's far easier to say, right before you get on a call with a potential client, tell me about how this client has interacted with our company, and very quickly get a summation of they've been following on LinkedIn for 3 years. They've engaged with these posts. They actually had a conversation with this person on your team 6 months ago. Here's the highlights from it. And to be able to accomplish that without, I think, what was the case before, which was you had to build and maintain a very, very rigorous data schema on the back end and have, an army of people inputting data constantly in the right format and have it be highly structured. I think it's much more forgiving to be able to just centralize context and have AI deal with a lot of the nuances of that. And, it seems like the advantage that you've had building this from first principles, knowing that AI is there, is you don't have all of that infrastructure that's based on that old way of doing things of like, we're going to manually build and maintain all of these things. And therefore you've been able to make it such that AI is doing a lot of that heavy lifting. So as long as you can point the CRM to where the context is being created and get it into the system, the AI does a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of making those decisions, summarizing that information, drafting an email that takes all that context into account, etc.
Absolutely. And I would even add something to that. Having all this context doesn't simply help to have like a consolidated overview of what's happening with your leads and your clients. It also helps completely change the story. The CRM isn't simply the system of record, the place where you store the data and you act on this data, but basically that's you that are acting. It makes it possible for this CRM to work on your behalf. For example, having a little assistant that enriches and researches every new company that are added to my system and briefs me on them before my meeting. Having an assistant that transcribe my meeting transcript into notes the way I take them directly in my system. An assistant that like scans through my email and identify the list that I haven't followed up with. These are very manual tasks that I would have done manually, but given the system is consolidating all my data and given that we can leverage the power of AI, you have a system that's working for you, like an army of little assistants.
One of the sort of debates that is raging on when it comes to AI in the industry is around sort of where you set a safeguard in terms of like, how much do we let the AI just operate on our behalf, especially when it comes to communicating externally or communicating with stakeholders versus having a human in the loop. I'm curious what your thesis is on that, where it is today, where you see it going, and how you see the relationship between these AI agents and, the people that are working in the business day to day.
Yeah, two points that come to mind. The first one is when I think about like workflows and how to apply AI to them, I think about a matrix, about how critical is this workflow and how hard is to automate it. How critical is this workflow? For example, if you're interacting with a client, you can't afford to like have a mistake in the email or share fake news. And we know that like LLMs are statistical. So that's the first thing. And how hard to automate it. There are workflows that are harder to automate than others. For example, voice, outbound, live. It's extremely hard to convince someone to take a demo with you. Well, it's probably simpler, to automate that by email. So basically, we think about these two, I'd say, components. How hard is it to automate, and how critical is the workflow? Based on that, and that's the second point, I do think that what really matters for AI is the last mile. What I mean by that is how you integrate it into like the last mile experience of the user, and how, in a sense, you unbundle ChatGPT. You see the use cases that people tend to use ChatGPT a lot for, but where ChatGPT is not really suited for that. It's great because it's very intelligent, but it's not the right interface. Chat is the least specialized interface possible. And you think how you can create an interface that's adapted in a way that it bakes in the review of your content before doing any critical action. For example, I take one example. We have an AI assistant that's in charge of doing follow-ups. And it doesn't send the follow-up on your behalf. It scans the contact that you haven't followed up with based on your last interactions. It sends you a notification and it pre-drafts the follow-up email or the follow-up WhatsApp, but it doesn't send it. And you have like an interface that is dedicated to that, in your Folk system. So this is to say that, I believe we are in an era where we are unbundling ChatGPT, and where for the most critical action is the role of the products that do it well to bake in reviews in order to manage risk.
Do you want some free resources to help you measure and improve your profitability? If you do, then I want to tell you about our agency profitability toolkit, which you can grab absolutely free in the show notes or by heading to parakeeto.com/toolkit. It's packed with training videos, cheat sheets, templates, and all kinds of other great resources to help you start measuring and improving the essential metrics that are going to drive better profitability in your business. And it's helped thousands of other agencies around the world do the same. So I want to encourage you to go and grab a copy of that. And if you'd rather get in the fast lane and just have our team of experts guide you through the process of measuring and improving your profitability, then I want to encourage you to apply for a consultation at parakeeto.com. And with that, I want to thank you again for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the episode, and I'll let you get back to it. Yeah. I want to ask you a question that is, it's a little bit ephemeral, but I'll frame this in saying that I think one of the challenges that agencies have and a lot of our clients have is drawing lines around their service offerings, right? There's this age-old story of, we're generating leads for the client, but then the client's not following up with them. So let's offer a follow-up service. And then they're following up, but they're not closing. So let's just start closing the leads for that. It's like, and if you pull on that thread long enough, it's like, well, why don't you just run their whole business for them? You end up with this incredible service hydra that creates drag in the business. The same is absolutely true about SaaS, especially in a market like CRM, where the edges of your product are infinitely complex. You interact with every part of the business. You interact with a very, very complex, rapidly changing ecosystem of other tools. How do you think about making decisions around the scope that you're going to cover inside of Folk and where you're going to integrate, plug into an existing ecosystem, given how complex and how fast that market is changing? And I asked that question because I think the way you think about this could be really insightful to how agencies think about making these kinds of decisions for their services.
I think that's a very, very interesting question and very contemporary topic. What I'm seeing is a bunch of different trends. First one is I do believe we are in an era of SaaS rationalization. The average company use more than 70 SaaS product, and I do believe that we have seen a massive increase since the 2010s, we are going toward more and more rationalization. And there is at this time more budget that is exploratory budget allocated to AI tools, because companies have FOMO around AI tools. But I do expect that rationalization will come for AI tools as well. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I do believe that in the sales stack specifically, the limits, the geographies of the different products that do exist are, I would say, arbitrary. So in the sales stack, you started by having the CRM space, but the reason that other categories that are adjacent, like sales engagement, for example, tools like outreach, or revenue intelligence, like tools like Gong, were created, is because CRMs weren't fast enough to innovate and to integrate these tools as core features of their platform. So they emerge as adjacent categories. But in an ideal world, I would simply need one platform in order to do my sales. There is no reason why I would need like 10 different vendors that I have to consolidate. Like, platformization makes sense. It's just hard to build. But in a world where AI makes building products faster, I do believe we'll go more toward platformization of the tools we use at work. And this is the case in the sales stack, but I expect it to be the case in other, I'd say, large category, like internal collaboration or whatever. And so yeah, I expect to have more platformization, and this will have more benefits, like obviously economies of scale and of cost. Obviously, faster onboarding for teammates that needs to use a tool, and data centralization. And in this world, you expect your tools to do more for you. And yeah, I believe that's what we are going toward.
It's interesting because, historically, the downside of going very wide in terms of the scope of your product is the drag that it creates on product velocity, right? Especially over time, you end up with a bigger, more complex code base with more dependencies. The complexity of your product management organization goes through the roof. Is the surface area of problems that you're dealing with, and the features and the integrations goes through the roof. And I think that's what creates the space for a Folk CRM to come in and start eating like a Salesforce or HubSpot's lunch, right? Is like there reaches a point where there's a paradigm shift and they just can't move fast enough. You're on a jet ski, they're on a cruise ship. And you could argue that that's sort of the cost of over time scaling into that. You leave yourself exposed. However, I think what you've mentioned with regards to AI is important, where in some ways, like there is this shift that we've never seen before, where you can build software that's not inherently deterministic, and in some ways is more portable and flexible. And it really raises an interesting question of like, can you start to build scale without necessarily having as much downside in terms of the rigidity that would have historically come with how we had to build software up until this point, where everything had to be deterministic because we didn't have these more probabilistic functions that we could implement that are handling things using LLMs and that kind of technology. It's really an interesting thought experiment to say, like, can you sort of have your cake and eat it too, move towards the platform without necessarily having to deal with all the downside and how much it slows you down.
And I will also link that back to what you were mentioning about the fact that with AI, you don't have to, let's say, structure your software product with the same rigid scaffolding as we used to in terms of architecture, and that it can, I'd say, accept a more also unstructured data. And I do believe that AI can make us manage way more advanced and complex workflows without additional complexity. And ChatGPT is a good example. We can do very complex things on ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is not a complex tool. It's a very simple interface. I do believe this, I'd say, a paradox will come to more software product that will help you do way more without being more complex, because all the complexity is managed in the backend, and the magic of LLMs that are able to deal with both structured and unstructured data will help solve this this use case for you. So that's what we are trying to solve for. We are trying to solve for way more complex sales workflow, while keeping the product very simple.
Yeah. So I want to shift gears and kind of turn our focus back to the market of expertise. I think especially in some of the digital marketing disciplines, there's a lot of fear mongering going on around AI. And I think some of it is justified, right? Like if I'm an SEO agency right now, I think we could both agree that SEO is not going to look the same. It already doesn't look the same as it did a couple of years ago. But fast forward a few years, what's happening to Google, what's happening to search, it's going to look very different. And so there's probably going to be some eggs cracked in the making of that omelet, in the sense that there are SEO agencies that will not make that transition and that will die. The same is probably going to be true about a lot of the other places that we're seeing AI disrupt things, content and web design and those kinds of things. Video, even now with bananas coming out recently, and it's bananas, right? So we're seeing some pretty incredible disruption happening with AI. And I think a lot of people are questioning, where does this industry go? What's happening to the business of selling expertise, the business of essentially reselling skilled labor? Given that you have had a big focus on this market, what is your thesis on how this market is evolving and where you see it going?
Well, that's a very broad question, but my perspective is that we have always feared that technological innovation and new cycle of innovation will destroy jobs. And that's the case. In reality, when you look back in time, in history, that's the case. But what also happened at the same time is that it created new kind of jobs. And I'm taking a stupid example, but recently, Reddit, and referencing yourself on Reddit has become a thing. And I've seen many agencies creating themselves on that purpose. So to help brands and businesses, understand how to position themselves on Reddit. So I do think that new technological innovation create new type of needs. What's quite unique with AI, I believe, is that it lowers the ceiling to become an expert on a certain topic. So I do think what I can expect from in the upcoming future is that given that everyone can have access to basic knowledge on any topic and learn very fast on any topic, that the importance of becoming an expert on something will increase over time.
I would agree with you. And I think this also plays into, I'm curious what you think about this thesis, but I feel that we've been seeing a trend of firms getting smaller over time, right? So there was a time when there was just a lot of very big firms. You had these holdcos buying up firms, and we're still going to have the big fours. We're still going to have the McKinseys of the world, but in that the mid market seems like it's shrinking and shifting more towards boutique firms. That was happening before AI, and now, of course, with AI becoming something that can efficiently do the thing that you would have historically thrown labor at, right? So we need to take this video and we need to create 40 different cuts of it for different types of media. Well, that used to be something you would throw a bunch of interns at. Now probably you're throwing an AI tool at that, and one person can do it instead of the team of 10 that it took before. And so where I think this continues is the trend will be you can do a similar amount of revenue that you were doing before, but with a much smaller team. And this plays into, I think, what you're talking about, which is being nimble, because the rate of change is also going to be very fast. And so by staying small, by leveraging the tools, you should be able to enable yourself to adapt more quickly, which I think is, and always has been to a degree, the reason that you just can't kill services. They're like the cockroach of the economy, right? They're there to solve problems, and it's very quick to solve problems. And so I think that's part of the feature of this instead of the bug.
Yeah, and I would compare, linking to what you mentioned, I also do believe that there will always be demand for high and good expertise, but the bar will be higher, and there will be probably less room for mediocrity or for, I would say, people that offer repetitive that do repetitive jobs that now can be taken care by an AI. We will expect from services that we will pay a kind of expertise, a strategic vision, a creative mindset that where an AI would fail, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. It's like the importance of having a point of view is increasing. And until we have AGI, and there's a lot of debate on like when that's going to happen, the limiting factor with AI is that it won't really be able to come up with things that haven't been come up with before. And so like if you have a novel point of view and you can shape AI to help leverage the ability for you to deliver that to the market in some way, then that I think there will still be a ton of demand for that, to your point, if it's geared towards solving a problem that is sufficiently severe.
100%. 100%.
So with all of that, Simo, I've enjoyed this conversation. Do you have any final words of advice for our experts out there that are looking to build their business into this this new era?
Yeah, I would say that I feel we are very lucky to live through this technological change. This happens once every 10 or more years that we like. It happened with the iPhone. It happened with the cloud. And so embracing change, staying up to date on what's happening on AI, helping other businesses adopt the latest advancement of AI can really already keep you well ahead of competition. So much is happening. There are lots of opportunity, lots of FOMO, also probably a lot of buzzword and things that are like unnecessary. But I think it's we're going through a very interesting era.
Yeah, I agree. This is like the biggest thing since the internet. I think a lot of people argue that it's going to be bigger than the internet, and that creates a lot of opportunity. So a very exciting time. I also want to say that I love what you're doing. You know, having worked with you on this sponsorship, having checked out the product, you know, you seem really focused on just helping people that do creative work, people that have expertise, just get to spend more of their time doing that. I think you and I both know, like most of the people that are out there doing that kind of work, sales is not the thing that they signed up to do. It's like a necessary evil as part of running the business. So all the ways in which you're helping them just get their time back and do the thing that they need to do to bring in business, but spend more of their time doing what they love, I think it's great. So I encourage everyone to go check out what you're doing.
Thanks for the words and very much appreciated. And yeah, if we can help give back a bit of time to business owners and agency owners and let them exert what they are really good at, their expertise, we are glad to contribute modestly.
So with that, for those that want to follow you and what you're doing, where should we send them in the show notes to learn more?
So feel free to go on folk.app or like hit me up on LinkedIn or by email at simo.folk.app, and we'll be very happy to set you up on Folk and help you find your perfect CRM setup.
Awesome. So we'll have links in the show notes. With that, Simo, thanks for joining us, man. It was great to speak with you.
Thanks, Marcel, for having me. It was a pleasure.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you've ever found yourself thinking, man, I get so much value from this podcast, I wish there was something I could do to return the favor. Well, today's your lucky day because you can leave us a review wherever you're listening to this, and it is incredibly helpful. Of course, if you haven't grabbed a free copy of the Agency Profit Toolkit, go and get that. It's got tons of free resources to help you improve your profitability. If you're looking to get in the fast lane and get help from experts to improve your profitability and measure your most important metrics, then apply for a consultation at Parakeeto.com. We'd love to chat with you and figure out how we can help. With all of that, thank you so much for being a listener, and we will see you on the next episode.